Hey guys, Boris here. A comp that is extremely hot in the current meta is the Stargazer Reroll. However, I have found that not all the players know how to properly cap out their boards or navigate some of the tougher spots. Therefore, let's quickly go over the comp here before we jump in our VOD review. You're ideally playing this from Serpent or Medallion constellations. Boar is fine and I would greatly prefer them over the rest. And you are playing either from a Tempo spot with Twisted Fate or Talon Slams. Talon is amazing at picking up those rounds in stages 2, 3 and early stage 4. Or around some Econ Engine or Econ Augment that is going to enable you to spike on stage 3 where you definitely want to be picking up the rounds. Now, once we are rolling, we are looking to roll for either your Talon, Twisted Fate and Jax, or since we have another unit, we can pick up the Gwen. That is going to give us something more to roll on level 6, and she's able to carry over those AP items quite well as well that you might have put on Twisted Fate. This is in case if you are far away from hitting that Twisted Face. Otherwise, 3-starring her, especially something on a Medallion, is also quite nice, and you're capping out your board with Rast and Riven on level 7 and 8 respectively. Now, for our itemization, Twisted Fate wants to be able to cast as much as possible there for Nashers, and even the Shojin is completely fine, and then you just simply add another AP item for him to send out the nukes. Talon loves to become a 2 auto attack caster, which enabled through Shojin, and then you want survivability on him as he's be going around the backline. Especially if one of your weaker frontline dies, you definitely do not want him to be retargeted immediately. Therefore, Edge of Night is prime, and last you have some survivability item with Gunblade being the best one. While Jax wants to remain as unkillable as possible, which is enabled through Stoneplate and Crown Guard. Second Stoneplate is amazing since he's going to be your solo frontliner, but any other form of a tank item is going to suffice. Deathclaw if lobby if they'd be heavy, or Visage for extra durability as well. Other things to note regarding the comp is that Jax 2 is simply a stronger tank than Aatrox 3, and whenever you're performing your roll down, you are completely fine to giving up on extra Caitlyn's or Aatrox's if you're not very close to hitting them, as your prime units to hit would be this Jax, then your Talon or TF, whichever you're carrying, and if you are far away from TF, obviously that place is going to be replaced by Gwen. For your god selections, Varus is amazing since he gets the possibility for tiny dupes, and is going to juice up your team even more with extra HP later on. Otherwise, Kayle is amazing since we are rerolling so many units. Items are amazing for us, and Yasuo can give us even more power or make the Jax even more unkillable. Therefore, for augment options, we are looking for early learnings or no scout no pivot are absolutely top tier selections that we can make. Strong econ augments such as On a Roll or Pandora's Bench are quite good as well. However, Pandora's Bench could get you bench lock quite easily. Other than that, we're looking for item augments, notably Portable Forge is very good, or Apathetic Forge is also great. TF carries Luden's Echo amazingly, and while for Jax the best one is Soraka's Miracle, but he's completely any other tank artifact is serviceable on him. And the combat augment note is just charge transfer whenever you're playing around the TF, as that bypasses his design where he's kept in check by being a single target nuker, but charge transfer enables you to be able to hit multiple targets afterwards if you're going for that overkill. Now, as usual, this cheat sheet and all the rest are going to be available in the link down below, and let's jump in game with a pro. For our VOD review, we are going to be jumping in game with Kjaos, who is a pro from the APAC region, I believe originating from the Singapore, so let's see how he manages to approach this line in a high elo lobby, already at Masters at this point at 143 LP. That's one of the top LPs we can see at the moment. Starting out here, we already get a Gwen and a Jax drop. This Jax unit always worthwhile to holding onto in case you will have this opportunity to either be playing into the reroll or into the Xayah board, as if you're able to 2-star him, he's an absolute monster that's going to be able to carry you all the way to stage 4. Holding on to other possibilities, playing around the Vanguard units as well as the Primordials and other econ generating sources is always the prime key to test. In case you do not get an opener, this is how you're going to bounce back into your game. Otherwise, do not put too much prio on them if you are able to. Play a strong board, and as we can see, we already identified here the possibility. We see that we have this opener right here that is going to nicely fit together, so we're going to be making 10. For our items, we have a Spear of Shojin. Coming up on our augment selection, slamming here would be the most appealing option. We can easily slam the Shojin and play into any form of an AP line pretty much. Blood Offering is not something you would realistically want in this comp. This is more for a melee duo carry comps, and Yi and Riven is not a real comp at the moment. Sunfire board is generically decent combat augment, however I do not like picking this on 2-1, as it's just simply not going to be having as much of a value, and Econ on 2-1 is going to be king. Apathetic Forge is an amazing option, so he's already defaulting that. Therefore, we're able to reroll the rest of our augments. Clear Mind is... I'm not sure. I've seen this picked very rarely, and it's very hard to cap out this board, and it's just generally considered a weaker econ option. Something like a patient study even would be more appealing. The best econ option we've seen of the 3 so far, but Apathetic Forge is going to play extremely well into this comp, so we're going to be immediately picking that up. And we have the option here to choose between Arizor and Soraka's Miracle, and we could evaluate here, since we already have a Shojin, if we are able to play for tempo, Soraka's Miracle here onto this Jax is going to perform quite well, and generally, if you have to pick between the two, it's a little bit of a better one, making this Jax even more unkillable if we go for a suggested build of a Stoneplate and Crown Guard, or even then we can double down on a Stoneplate quite fine. Q into a backline blueprint, I believe this would be, playing around the Urgot here. Urgot transforms a little bit of a beast, and we opted not to slam the Shojin, which is an interesting choice. If we had to slam the Shojin, we could have perhaps won, but now we pick up a Talon too and definitely are able to go for this tempo. Our Stargazer constellation here, I believe that's the boar, if I'm not mistaken. We'll have to take another look when the hexes come up, as if you do not know, the constellations do they are the same pattern depending on the constellation always. And going to slam the Shojin on the Talon. Talon, an absolutely amazing unit as mentioned in stages 2 and 3, able to scam queue quite a lot of fights. Once we have a little bit better way, I'm going to again display how we could position this Talon unit for him to be able to get to the backline. Able to pick up an upgraded Poppy, so we are definitely off a strong start. Definitely starting to regret not slamming the Shojin onto the first fight in order to win that one, as it seems we have the potential to go for a 5 streak. And we can see, even though it doesn't cost us econ, we are carrying over this Gwen. Now, on level 5, we ideally, if we are playing around TF, we are going to be slotting in that Caitlyn, especially providing that Nova buff right there with the Aatrox for the Shred Sunder. Otherwise, if you are carrying the Talon, you are fine to be slotting in that Gwen as well. For our boon selection right here, since we took a item augment, we are definitely wanting something that's going to enable us to get a little bit of an econ, and we are playing from a tempo spot, so we're going to have some HP preserved and could go for a Blood Pact. I've seen in quite a few lobbies a lot of players shy away due to this health cost. Now obviously this can backfire, but it's quite good to pick up, and either both the components are fine as they could complete as a half of a Jax item, and this chain would play a little bit better into if we thought about the Talon items. And Thresh's boons are generally quite valuable, but you definitely do not want to be aligning yourself with him, so we're going to actually go with the chain, which is completely fine. Again, getting the GA sorted and half a stone plate is completely valuable for us. And we do get a Hex right now, and this is the Burn and Wound Hex, which is quite nice, and also the magic damage, which is amazing for the TF, so we could be considering playing into TF, and in case we have to ditch playing on TF, it's completely fine to be positioning your Gwen right there, in order for her to be able to gain the buff if you are carrying her instead of the TF. And we can see the Talon already making here on the backline as the Jax has taken up the clump. But this is a level 5 player, so this is going to be quite close, and unfortunately we do not pick up a win. Whenever you are playing from an item augment on stage 2, you are quite incentivized to be playing for a streak, unless it's something that has a clear game plan. With a Apathetic Forge, if you pick up an Ori's Aura, you could be considering playing into the mech line, which then obviously you would want to be playing around an Econ Engine and lose streaking. Into what seems to be most likely a drone Victor board there with a Teemo and a Jewel Gauntlet. The Teemo unit is extremely strong currently, but still this Talon managed to pick up another work. We managed to position our Jax right in front of them and have the Talon get on the back line and secure us a win right there. So ending up with a mixed streak, which is not the greatest of the spots to be in. However, we have played our recon strong due to be making that 10 onto the stage 1. And we're going to be in a good spot. And let's see if we are considering rolling down a little bit more on the level 4. The bells, generally we would probably be more looking to transition into some form of a Nashor's Tooth. However, he's going to value putting up a 3-item unit here, as we can nicely complete that with the Warmogs right there. Going to be rolling down, pick up a Gwen too, which is going to now slotting in, and interesting choice to not even play for Bastions. I would assume next level in is going to be the Bastion unit, and Gwen 2 is going to be obviously an absolute great carry to be playing around at the moment. Into the mech player again, and now that this Jax is absolutely stacked, is going to be worthwhile. The reason why we slammed, we had a double belt, right, and we can complete the Warmogs, have a 3-item tank, and especially the Jax into this stage is going to be extremely strong. Now, thing to note about rolling down again on before 3-2 quite deep, especially if you're playing without an econ augment. If we see something like an honor roll right now, we would have lost a little bit of a value. But for our augment selection right now, otherwise we're looking for some kind of an item-centric augment, most likely, since we're going to have quite a few 3-stars, and something like Band of Thieves would have immediate great value for ourselves. Late game specialist, we're definitely not clicking that. It's nice if you're going to play it for fast 9, but it incentivizes you to be holding your golden 8, and that's quite hard at the moment to do. Focused fire is not, we're not playing pure attack damage comp. Rolling for days would be a decent option if you wanted to consider econ. Same teaming up, more of a hybrid, but we do not have an open component that we could capitalize on right here. And Band of Thieves is just a prime augment to be picking up in the spot. Since we have this Gwen 2 already, we are able to slap the TG right on there. Most likely going to check first and see that it's a death cap, so that's going to be quite fine right there. And still, I assume since we have this 3-item Jax, he do not really even care about him having the Bastion buff. We simply we're saying this is sufficient amount of frontline, so we are going to be playing for full damage. Very interesting play. And perhaps recognizing how this comp can win these fights on level 5. Now our Talon does get stuck a little bit on the front line, but with this Gwen AG we are able to pump out enough sufficient amount of damage to get through there, and for this reroll comp it's key that we are able to pick up these rounds on stage 3, as this, we are rolling down, right? This is where we want to be spiking and picking up all the wins we absolutely can. Otherwise, going to just econing up and probably slow rolling from this spot, since we already have hit all our 2-stars, we are not in a hurry to be rolling down deeper anymore. And queue into another weaker player seems to be, yeah, with the Earths most likely playing into some form of a space group board. Absolutely the best way, probably the only reason why would you be taking an augment such as Earths at the moment. For our next god selection, ideally this is where we want to be aligning ourselves with Evelyn. Now in this game I could perceive perhaps quite a few players aligning themselves with Thresh, but again the Thresh just does not really have that much of a value going into that stage 5. You're not going to have anything at the start, and you to make up for not playing without a god buff, you have to get quite far in stage 6. Obviously our comp is something that could possibly do it, but if you're able to capitalize on immediate power, we're able to definitely gain safe placements. And Steamroll could help us a little bit with that econ situation. Glove, we have ways to use it. Another sword though is quite appealing for the Talon if we are carrying that, since we can make the GA still and can make the Gunblade, which is even nicer to keeping your Jax alive. But let's see if he's going to value that, and perhaps he's scouting the lobby, seeing that most likely we can able to pick up wins. So if you're able to print out any more of these 3 costs, we are definitely going to have a nice econ buff for ourselves. Able to pick up a Caitlyn 2 from our God Blessing right there. And again, for talking about your unit priority, if we'll have to end up having to sell anything, we're most likely going to be looking to sell extra Caitlyn's or Aatrox's, Caitlyn's first, since we're not even really having items for her at this point. But we are not that far from Caitlyn 3, so we might be considering holding on to that and haven't gotten into bench lock position. Sometimes we can also sell extra Gwens, obviously, if we are seeing that we are playing for a TF carry instead. Simply never sell your Jaxes. That is the most important rule of thumb right there. Thankfully, do not get bench locked. And unfortunately, we did lose our steamroll right away. But I guess, well, 3 gold is a 3 gold. Have to be sufficient right there. And again, we can see here, trying to position the Jax in front of the enemy clump while keeping the Talon back here. And let's see how this Talon moves. Okay, now this time he's jumping right there, but it does not exactly work out, but he was jumping there on the backline. The Talon is going to be targeting always the highest HP percent target in his range. So sometimes if he's able to walk up right there, for example, tanking around there, we can get on the backline carry right there and then start jumping on the corners. Able to pick up our Talon 3 right away. And also obviously having your Jax in front of the enemy clumps is going to prevent any form of a wrap spot potentially. Another sword, which is, sometimes people do not know what to do with these swords when you get extra swords, and this is how you do it. You're going to be picking up that, you're going to be utilizing them on that Talon right there. Able to find, have to dig deep here as this is definitely where we're going to be spiking and picking up rounds. Able to find our TF3, so just going to be slamming TG on him for now. And not that far from Gwen either. Had to give up on that Aatrox, but that is fine as the Jax is an absolute monster to be playing around himself. And for our last augment selection right now, Electro Charge is more your full out frontline builds. Side effect is not a bad option, but Jax shields sound. We do not really have any form of other form of a healing. You have to be knowing which units and like a mighty mech which can potentially heal that are quite good. And while for Bronze for Life, if you think that the comp can run Kayn, Bronze for Life is going to be quite good. Obviously, since we're on a little lower board, it's not going to be much value, but it seems to be the best combat option presented for ourselves. And this is going to give us the mini medallion kind of a buff. Booster pack could be appealing of an option, but we have pretty much hit our carries right away. We are only really looking for this Jax at the moment, which we have to evaluate. Is this going to be worthwhile for us to be looking for? And it seems that going for a combat here is more of a play to be considering if we are wanting to secure placements right now, win these stage 4 fights, and then we're going to be in a primes position, and hopefully that is going to be sufficient enough for us to go on a little streak and rebound our econ position. Both options I think would have been fine. If we picked up a booster pack, could have rebounded our econ right there and fished for these extra remaining 3 costs. I believe that any decision is quite fine. I perhaps might have leaned more towards the econ option myself, but we have to see. If this Bronze for Life enables us to win a couple of more rounds, we're completely fine. And this could have been the better of the choices. Scouting the lobby around, it seems that not a lot of players have managed to 2-star their forecast within this thing. I think just saw the Nami 2 coming in right there, but this is a Jhin carry right there with a Riven 2 without items and Karma 2 with just a Void Staff, and the Stallion is immediately able to get rid of the Jhin, and then this GA is another reason why it's so good. You're having that double dip on them from him to proc. He can carry quite a lot, but unfortunately does jump on the wrong side then, and we do not just get overwhelmed. So perhaps this is his read of having the extra combat is how you are going to be able to pick up the rounds on the stage 4, especially until you make it to the Jax 3. Here in our selection again, I like gold here, and the rod is not that bad of an item either, but completed item is also quite fine. Do we have an open Reforger? We do not, and our open item here is a tier. So even though perhaps this first trash selection is what is not that appealing of a choice that we have made, but let's see if he is going to align himself with trash just through to the requiring extra gold, or he is going to just simply value this extra completed item and hope that we are going to get there. If we had the Reforger, I would be more inclined. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to utilize this extra bow. Able to pick up a Rust from our selection, so our selections have been quite nice. Now we're 1 copy away from Gwen, could consider digging. We find a blue buff, which is actually quite serviceable in our spot, could just be tossing that on the Talon. Obviously this guy ideally has some little bit of a healing in the Gunblade is just simply the best of the choices, but we have to suffice. We made it Sams for tempo, and in these kind of comps we cannot always fish for full bis options, and simply this is going to enable the Talon to jump around quite a lot, also give him a little bit of an extra AD on his part. And at the end, he was able to make it to the victor right there in the backline, and we were able to pick up a win. This is somehow how we could actually now winning rounds until we make it to the Jax 3. Like, the reason why this comp is so prevalently strong is just because just Jax 3 is an absolute monster. And our read there to be able to go for a Bronze for Life has secured us some rounds here, and that allows us to remain in this cruising position where we have some HP that we can sacrifice in order to delay our spikes, but able to pick up the Gwen 3 quite early right there on out. And we have managed to fight another person who has not managed to fully hit their board and still going for an anima Kjaos, so they perhaps are going for that fast 8-9 transition in some form of a way into the Vex 2 from that LeBlanc board. For our boon selection right now, looking to perhaps complete some of our items. This is an interesting option. We would have to evaluate what it is. Ideally, we'll be able to pick up an item pair, but you do not want to be digging too low. So as soon as you find something that is going to be good, you're going to be fine. We have Wound sorted. We have our Shred and Sunder sorted through that Jax. Now, this would be more of a Caitlyn kind of option if we opted to go, but that was only really was the Caitlyn with a Rage Blade. Ideally, we're looking for something to complete on the TF, something like a rod and a bow, perhaps. This is an interesting choice. Let's see what items he's going to end up going for. Another blue buff. Not too excited, I would believe. On the TF, you ideally want to caster items. This is pretty much what we will be looking for, right? Getting that Archangels, obviously not a death cap, but it's going to be sufficient. And getting some mana gen onto this TF. For this TF, you obviously want just some to be able to cast and then have some AP onto him. Going to able to finally find our Jax 3, so now we're fully online, pushing the levels, slotting in the Kane right there, providing even a little bit more tankiness to our whole team. Did not get to swap the Jax in front of this Nami, so our Talon did get aggroed on a little bit early on, but is he able to prevail? And he gets the cast off in the nick of a time, but unfortunately the Nami is able to take us out. A little bit of mispositioning, I would believe, so right there. But we have this comfortable HP lead, and we see that the Thresh players are a little bit in the bottom half, so it's like at least half of them are going to really having a God's Boon ability right there. Again, do not have this Jax in front, so this Talon is going to be jumping around the frontline units and not really making it to backline. Just made it in the nick of a time, but now this scaling from the Jax surviving is going to get close for our TF, when he does just get to the cast to take the single unit off, and Caitlyn's able to finish off the work. Very close fight, so perhaps this is why we're going to evaluate these combat augments so high in these later stages of the game. There are two ways for us to make these lower cost reroll comps, how we are going to get them spikes. One is items. Whenever you hit your units, you are mostly, the itemizing these units is going to be of a higher value, but prime combat augments are also a way how you are able to get a spike on the board and gain an edge of a lobby, especially if they're leaning more towards econ, especially as there was no econ gods into this spot right now. But we're able to secure top 4 as some of these players dive down, able to find another Nasher, so our TF is fully online. This is the case at the moment, that we are in a little bit of a mercy of these TG rolls, and we only really had one fully itemized carry. Ideally, we would have had two going into this stage 5 early on already. But it's fine, we had the HP lead to sack, and now we have the Jax in the prime position. But the Talon decides to jump on the other way, and now only makes it to the Nami, so that's a little bit of a late for the scaling, and the TF is not able to really pick up this Space Grove Nami comp. It's just a little crazy. This guy's winning out on a single HP. Hopefully someone's able to take him down and teach him a lesson for just being a max greeder, but it is how it is. Again, we are in a split matchup, so we'll have to see. Going to roll down here on a 7 is simply looking for that Rust upgrade, as we are evaluating that we are most likely not going to make it to level 8, and the ribbons are already out of pool, so it might be a little bit harder to find that one. To get the other matchup, it seems, so our Jax is not again there. Now, since the thing is, if your Jax is right here, and the Talon makes it the other way to the middle, what happens when your weaker tanks dies, Talon gets retargeted. And since he's the closest unit, obviously, that's why not only Rogue but also GA is quite valuable for him. Transitioning our items here on Bard is a neat trick. Perhaps we're able to farm a dragon. Might value that Elder Dragon higher than the Rast right now. Unfortunately, do not find him. So going to most likely transition back right there. For our, we don't really have an open item slot. Might looking to improve perhaps our Talon items if we wanted to. But then what we really do with this blue buff at the moment. Let's see, an interesting choice to be presented. We see that we are in a magic damage matchup, so we might perhaps consider moving this Warmugs off. No, we're instead going to simply having this Rust to have the declaw, which is going to hopefully delay the fight a little bit more. Again, our GA gets procced immediately, but we have the double survivability. Now we make it to the back line. The Jax is down, but is able to buy us enough time for the TF to be scaling. Since TF is a single target nuker, this is why you definitely want a strong foundational frontline for him if you are playing around him. And the same goes for your rogues, right? The Talon is going to be jumping around this backline ideally in the ideal case, and that is why this Jax upgrade is what fully actually enables this comp. Now he's going to be stuck on the front line for quite a bit for this kind of a positioning. Let's get to a blow bang, but that's quite late already. And this is, now it seems that we are simply going to get overrun. You have to be wary, and especially in this split positioning matchup is going to be quite tough. But now we're in a 1v1. Are we able to close it out? It seems that we are going up against, I think it was the Victor, no, it's the LeBlanc Karma board. What have they really do? They have some strong combat options that are fully enabling them as a Karma fully itemized duo carry. And our only way would have been to be perhaps able to make it to the LeBlanc in a nick of time, but does not happen since they have so many frontline units that are able to be in a closer proximity. So we're going to end up on the top 2, but that's a good result since this 1-cost reroll comp is generally something that you are going to be playing for securing very safe top 4s. And unless you find some Giga Juice, and since our Bronze for Life is not that huge of a value at this point anymore compared to some of these, something like a Jeweled Lotus when they have already 2 itemized carries, even though they have a JG on their side, they're going to having a little bit of value, and they have made it to the point where the treasure scaling is actually providing some more value. Still very greatly displayed how to be playing whenever identifying that on stage 4 we need to go for the spike. This is where we secure placements, and we're able to pick up rounds right there, and that allowed us to make it to the finalized board where we were able to get extra items to itemize our carries, which were holding just TGs. And I hope that this water review also helped to display how to be playing around a little bit better around Talon, having that Gwen duo right there, and how to approach the line. And I wish to see you in the next one. Have a good one.